All right, well, batter up. Let's get Morrison and Patlak up here. Let's talk about Cook County property taxes. That's always fun. So while these gentlemen are situating themselves, let me just tell you what the ground rules are. The ground rules are there are no rules. What we want is to have a conversation. So we want to have these gentlemen who are holding themselves up for elective office have a conversation with you, interact with you. We don't want it to just be trading off 30-second sound bites. We really want to get into some of the meat of the issue, let them have a chance to express themselves, let them have a chance to talk to one another, maybe even in a bit of a spirited fashion, and then get your questions as well so that we get as much value-added information for you, the voters, as we can generate from our brief time with these two candidates. So let me start. Allow both of you to introduce yourselves, but while you're introducing yourselves, tell us all, I should say, both of you, tell us about your vision for the office on the Board of Tax Review. And I don't just mean that statutorily. I mean the opportunity that that office provides also as a bully pulpit to talk about some of the larger reform issues in Cook County. Why don't we start with Commissioner Patlak?
Okay, we're on. Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Patlak. I'm the newly elected commissioner at the Cook County Board of Review. I took office on December 6th. For those of you not familiar with the Board of Review, it is a county office run by 3 commissioners, each elected in a separate geographic district. It is charged with reviewing property assessment appeals from taxpayers who are residential, commercial, and industrial, and vacant land owners who feel that their assessments are too high. I've enjoyed my time at the Board of Review for the past 12 months, and we feel we've made a lot of progress there, and perhaps Dan will ask some questions about that, but I'll just limit my time to talking about what he said the vision is for the future, and that is to ramp up our operations. We've already taken the first step in bringing the Board of Review into the 21st century by instituting for the first time this past September 6th online appeals. Online appeals has been something that a lot of people have been pushing for many years. We finally got it in place. The first group of townships that we opened at the board, 49% of the parcels of property that were appealed ended up being appealed online. That was with very little publicity about the online appeals. So we expect that as time goes on, we will reach at least 90% with the online appeal usage. This is good because it increases access for taxpayers, but it's also good for the Board of Review and for taxpayers in general because it cuts down on paper usage. We don't have as many forms as we have to print out. And we don't spend as much time doing the data entry that goes along with the paper filing of complaints. But looking into the future, we're also planning on going into a digital system at the Board of Review. This is dependent to a great degree on funding from the county. We do need capital funding to achieve this. But once we get into the digital system, we will be able to put everything online, and in the computer so that we can dispense with the paper files, and instead all the analysts can look at everything, whether it's the initial complaint or the evidence that goes along with the complaint to help them decide what the decision should be on the appeal that's made. So the vision for the future of the Board of Review is to digitalize, become more efficient, and be able to do things in a much less costly manner.
Mr. Morrison.
Thank you. Vision. Technology is the primary vision that I see down at the Board of Review. Dan talks about the online process. The online process was started roughly a year and a half ago, prior to Dan even arriving at the board, from Rogers and Mr. Barrios. Unfortunately, their great hail of a technological advancement is nothing more than the ability to put an application in to have your appeals. Quite frankly, that's ancient technology. My company, we've been taking online applications for almost 11 years now. There's a commercial out right now that says that's about as cutting edge as 8-track tape. So I would say that. I'd also say that we've heard from several of the commissioners and board members out the county that they're also, even though that is limited currently, that they're experiencing problems with that. So there needs to be some IT solutions on that. The use of technology, when we talk about going from paperless to digital, That also is not necessarily something new. The integration of scanning documents, scanning appeals, scanning evidence, things of that nature, and putting them into an internet base to where they can be looked at via the web even. The solutions and the technology that has been out again in that field as well. It's very, very low cost, and quite frankly, it's very low tech. It's easily trainable of the staff, and it can actually create a much more productive staff. I like to take it one step further in our plan. Our plan is kind of the obvious question as to why we don't have the entire tax appeals process digitized and computerized from the time that you appeal all the way through the hearings. Right now, even if you do use the online and you put the application in to have your appeals heard, you still have to gather all your paperwork and evidence, and you have to wait for your hearing date, and then you have to go down and you have to present it, and you have to have a hearing face-to-face. I asked the question, the obvious one, I think, as to why these hearings cannot be conducted in many other forms, digitally, from your home, office, from your iPads, from your cell phones even. IDES has been conducting telephone hearings for almost 18 years now. Why couldn't we provide the evidence, send it in digitally, and then have a hearing from the comfort of your home, office, cottage, wherever, your car even as you're driving in? Those are the things on the technological side, Dan, that I would present. Thank you.
Thank you both. I want to talk a little bit about how the Board of Review works politically. You mentioned Joe Barrios. He built a political fiefdom from his perch previously on the Board of Review, taking tens of thousands of dollars from attorneys and other people who came before the board with their property tax appeals. It's kind of an unusual circumstance when attorneys practice in Cook County Circuit Court. They're not giving the judge thousands of dollars unless they plan on spending some time behind bars. But the Cook County Board of Tax Review, not illegal to do it, not illegal to take these contributions, but do you both, a question to both of you, do you see this as problematic, and what, if you do see it as problematic, what would you say about the seeming conflict of interest of people that appear before the Board of Review also being heavy campaign donations, campaign contributors? And we'll start with Mr. Morrison.
To say it's a conflict of interest is understatement of the year, I think, Dan.
I'm very understated.
Yeah, right. Understated guy. Of course, that's your reputation. I see my opponent here squirming in his chair right now because he probably knows what I'm going to talk about on this. Mr. Patlak has been in office, he's correct, for 9.5 months. 9.5 months, he's raised a considerable amount of funds in the 90 percentile, over 90 percentile, directly from the very property tax attorneys that appear in front of him. Is that a conflict of interest? I guess that's a question each individual needs to ask themselves. As a fiscal conservative, as a valued conservative, to me it's a huge conflict of interest. Is it ethically? Yes, it is. In some cases, is there a Cook County Code of Ethics? Yes, there is. I would suggest that Mr. Patlak, unfortunately, has crossed that line. When you solicit tax attorneys for $5,000 each, the very tax attorneys that appear before you and present commercial cases, when you solicit them, that's a breach. At the very least, it's a breach of our trust. It's a breach of ethics. And in some cases, it may be a breach of the law, depending on which way you look at it. My opponent here has raised record amounts of money from the property tax attorneys. I don't grin and I don't smile and I don't laugh at that, folks. Not at all. I don't find it funny. Don't find it funny at all. I question it. I worry about it. And, you know, I have a fear of it. What is my fear? My fear is that we're one more campaign donation away from Tony Rezko, from Blagojevich. This is a GOP event tonight. The embarrassment that can come to our entire party, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. There's many ways. I understand the importance of raising money for any group, any organization, any campaign. There's ways to do it ethically. There's ways to do it fair. Targeting law firms is not the way to do it.
Just a follow-up, kind of my prerogative, if you will. Just to be clear then, if you don't think what Commissioner Patlak has done is proper, would you not raise money from individuals who would appear before the Board of Tax Review that you would potentially rule on property tax appeals?
I absolutely would not shake down the attorneys that appear before me in the Board of Review. Under me, the Board of Review will not be for sale to tax attorneys. I will not shake them down, and I'll say that now until the cows come home.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Patlak, your response to that question and some of what has been said.
Sure. Mr. Morrison's point of view is interesting in light of the fact that he recently sent out solicitations to attorneys to attend a fundraiser that he was having, where he suggested that they pay an entry fee and perhaps pay a sponsorship to attend the event. It's also interesting in light of the fact that when he announced his candidacy, he mentioned that he was going to model his administration, if he were elected, over that of Maureen Murphy. Now, I worked for Maureen Murphy for 8 years, from the time that she took office in January of 1999 till the time she left office in December of 2006. Mr. Morrison, as a matter of fact, contributed significantly to a campaign fund that did a mailing on behalf of Maureen, and Mr. Morrison contributed, I believe, about $4,000 to that fund. To his credit, he did support Maureen, and she was a wonderful person who did a wonderful job. Also contributing to that fund were many attorneys who practice at the Board of Review. And you know, during the time that Maureen was at the Board of Review, she raised over $900,000 from attorneys who practice at the Board of Review. And yet Mr. Morrison said in his opening statement when he announced his candidacy that he was going to model himself after Maureen Murphy. Now he sees that I have raised money from attorneys who practice before the board, and by the way, not in record amounts, but he criticizes me for doing that. I find that to be hypocritical. And when I worked for Maureen, despite the fact that she raised that money from the attorneys who practice at the board, at no time did she ever put pressure on me as an analyst or any of the analysts at the Board of Review under her or anyone else that they should favor any attorney who made a contribution to her. And she took contributions in the amount of $5,000, and she solicited them in that amount. So I think the key is not telling attorneys or anyone else that they can't contribute at the Board of Review. It's transparency. All right? We have transparency in two ways. First, we have transparency with the reports to the State Board of Elections, so that anybody who does contribute, you know who they're contributing, you know who is contributing and who they're contributing to and how much they've contributed. You also know what's happening with the files and the decisions, because the files and the decisions of the Board of Review are open to the public. The Board of Review is required by law to keep their decisions available to the public for 5 years. So there are paper files with the evidence in them, with the notes from the analysts, and anyone...
Campaign sheets. I'll guarantee you, I know exactly what my thing said. There was no ask or request for a sponsor. It was a $25 donation. $25, Dan, not $5,000, Dan. Major difference. I also invited people to come out for that $25 and meet me and have a drink and a coffee and some hors d'oeuvres. I didn't invite them to come out and give me $5,000 and then have them appear before me the next day and the next second day and the third day representing clients with $1 million, $2 million tax cases. I didn't do that, Dan. And I will not do that because I will not shake down attorneys for donations. I won't do that. Under my thing, I will not do that. And in fact, all of my employees, to talk about that, they will all sign ethics contracts with me. My employees will do that. As far as Ms. Murphy goes, I'm not going to talk about what Maureen did or did not do. I am 100% unaware of that. With your track record, I don't know that I find that viable. I do know, though, that I have your direct solicitation for $5,000. I'd be interested to see if you have one from Maureen Murphy. But if you do, great. I'm unaware of that. But Maureen has nothing to do with me. When I talk about I want to emulate Maureen Murphy, I'll tell you how I want to emulate Maureen Murphy. Maureen Murphy was a fighter. Maureen Murphy fought against corruption. Maureen Murphy fought for the taxpayers. She fought for her constituents. She did it as a state rep, and she did it when she was down at the Board of Review. That's how I want to emulate Maureen Murphy. I want to fight for the people. I don't want to go along with the status quo. I don't want to go along with the Democrats. And to sit here and say that you've done nothing wrong or nothing outside of the line, and your response was I believe, you've done nothing that would be illegal.